We're going to talk about discrimination, and we're mostly going to talk about people of African ancestry and sub-Saharan African ancestry, i.e. black people. So we are, what's up, dog? Damn, it's been forever and a day. All right. So we're mostly going to talk about people of sub-Saharan African ancestry and white people. There are other conversations we can have. We've already done a lot with Asians. We'll come back to it. Next class, I'll come back to other groups more so, but I really want to focus today on discrimination and racism as it affects black people. So here, we're going to start right here. First, right, take a look at this. Discrimination against white people has become as big of a problem as discrimination against black people and other racial and ethnic minorities. The percentage of white people who agree with this, 52% of all whites. 76% of Tea Party supporters, which, says something about the kind of thinking that draws you to maybe the Tea Party, which is not good or bad. I mean, it just is. 61% of Republicans, 58% of working class, 38% of Democrats, and 39% of all people with a college degree. So you do understand that the more educated you become, the more liberal and to the left people tend to become, okay? The less religious, the less likely to believe in creationism, there are all sorts of things that go along with an education, which is why it's very dangerous to a lot of people. But look, what I want to do is, after today's class, I want to come back to this question and see what we think about this. The 52% of white people in the United States think that discrimination against white people has become as big of a problem as discrimination against people of color. And mind you, I haven't really talked about this issue today. So this is really the first day that we're going to go into some things. I did it. Okay, go to the next slide. So we're going to watch this video and I'm not going to do any commentary on it. Let's just watch it and we'll go from there. And as you're watching the video, keep in mind it was 9 police officers involved.
Resisting, get out! Stop resisting!
It's a fucking kid!
Stop!
Get off of him! There's a kid!
Stop resisting! Get out! Stop resisting! Get out!
Can you get off of him?
Stop
It's a kid! It's a kid! Get the fuck off of him! It's a fucking kid! It's a goddamn kid!
Turn around!
You're a fucking adult! What's wrong with you, motherfucker?
Turn around!
It's a fucking kid! You're fucking jaywalking?
Turn around! Turn around!
Turn around! Leave him alone!
Stay on the ground!
Sit right there while they fucking try to shoot you or some shit! It's a fucking kid! It's fucking sad!
Stay on the ground!
It's a goddamn kid! That's a kid! That's a fucking kid! Are you serious? It's a kid! He didn't do nothing wrong! That is a child! That is a child! That is a child that was jaywalking right here! He don't have to do that to him! That is a child! It's a fucking child!
What this boy did was jaywalk. He stepped off the bus and he jaywalked. And the question that I have for everybody is, okay, I know a lot of you are saying, when the police come at you, you just obey them. Really? You're a 15-year-old kid and the police come at you and with a baton and they're like, hey, come over here, kid. Do you just obey them? How many of you obeyed? How many of you have ever had that happen to you? How many people who live in all-white communities at your bus stop, have you ever seen somebody being taken down by the police? Maybe one of you have. How often have you seen it? How often do we see that? Middle-class communities, upper middle-class communities. What would happen in an upper middle-class community if some upper middle-class white kid, first off, but then white kid, got harassed by the police and beaten up by the police for jaywalking, and then beaten up because he walked away from the police? who said, hey, come over here. And he just kept walking because he was trying to get to school. And it's just a question. And so you can watch one example of this, but we're not going to talk about one example today. We're going to talk about a pattern that we see over and over and over again. And I want to start this because when we see one example, it's really easy to disentangle anything and say, well, the kid should have been listening. Have you ever had somebody coming after you with a baton, even a police officer? And like, what are you going to do? You're going to grab the baton. You're not going to just let the dude swing it. I don't care who it is. You're going to grab the baton. You're going to try, and they're going to say, let go, let go. Like, if I let go, you're going to beat me with it. So I'm not letting go. And you're 15 years old, and you're hanging on. And so all the people who want to make, if you're sitting there saying, but he should have done this, he should have done that. It's like, well, there are so many things maybe that should happen, but maybe we should live in a society where police don't beat the shit out of a 15-year-old kid for jaywalking. What kind of a world do we want to live in? Then we got to ask the question, are young boys and young girls with dark skin most likely to experience this, more likely to experience this than light-skinned kids? The answer, I'm sure we can all say, is yes. And then the question is, how much more likely? That's the next question. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today. How much more likely? Okay, so I'm not saying the kid, this young boy, didn't do anything wrong. What I am saying is there is a pattern of violence that we see that is against people of color, and where does this come from? There's a pattern of violence by the police toward everybody. Toward everybody. We live in a world where we've built up police forces that are paramilitary policing. Paramilitary. They're like militaries. So it's a pattern of violence against everybody. So this is what we're going to talk about. So let's see where it starts. Go to the first one. So here, remember this one? Remember we did the job interview, and when we did the race exchange, we did this. So dude, how about, can I use you, bro? I need a white dude and yeah, bro, can we use you? Just because we'll use you. You guys don't look alike. Imagine, what's your name, bro? Ethan? Yeah. Bro? Donovan. Ethan Donovan. So remember this, we're going to do it again. Imagine Ethan and Donovan right here. They have resumes right here. Imagine they're dressed exactly alike, okay? They're not right now, so you can't really do it. Imagine they're the same size, they have the same haircut, they're dressed exactly alike, everything. They're exactly alike. Their teeth are the same. One doesn't have crooked teeth and one straight teeth. One doesn't have like a 2-day-old beard and another on a 3-day-old beard. They're exactly the same. They shake hands the same, exactly the same firmness. They hold the hand the same amount of time. They shake it once, not twice. They look in the eye for the exact amount of time. They have the same speech pattern. Everything about them is the same, except one has dark skin, one has white skin, and their resumes are the same. But we change up the resumes. We switch off. Sometimes he has a felony drug conviction. Donovan does, and sometimes Ethan has a felony drug conviction. We switch back and forth, and we want to see, like, who do employers want to hire? This is a test. It's a test. You can't know. You cannot. Some of you can. If I pass the mic around and I say, give me stories of discrimination here in State College, some of you will raise your hand and say, well, I didn't get an apartment. This landlord wouldn't rent an apartment to me that I really wanted. And then later I found out that they rented to a white person. And I'm like, well, that's not discrimination. It might be, but you don't know that. It might be, but you don't know that. You have no idea, right? Well, the security guard followed me around in the store. It's like, that's not discrimination. Like, whatever, they just followed you around in the store. Yeah, but I'm the only one with black skin. That doesn't matter. That's not discrimination. That's not racism, because they followed you around. How do you know that for the last 12 people they followed around weren't white people? Like, you don't know that. You can't know. We can only know when we do these things like tester studies, and we control for everything. So we control for these guys, and then they go into these job interviews in the same job, and we go back and forth, and we say, like, okay, who's going to get callbacks? Are we following here, right? Who's going to get callbacks? So go to the next slide. And so we know that Ethan right here is going to get the most callbacks because he's white, and especially when he doesn't have on his resume, he doesn't accept that or say that he has a felony drug conviction. We know that, right? The white guy is going to get more callbacks. Dudes, white people, look, get this in your heads. So what you're going to see today is that white people have this idea that, well, but it's actually works against me to be white because this guy gets all the benefits and so on, right? Because black people, they get all the advantages because we all have this stuff called affirmative action and so on, so it works against me. No, dude, trust me, what you're going to see by the end of today is we get lots and lots and lots of affirmative action. So here we go on this one. We know that he's going to get the most callbacks when he doesn't have a felony drug conviction. So who gets the second most? Is it Donovan here without a criminal record, or is it Ethan here with a criminal record? So we did this before, right? So go ahead. And so we see that it's the white guy. 34% receiving callbacks, right? 34% of the white guy without a criminal record got callbacks, so him, right? 14% of the black guy without a criminal record gets callbacks, but 17% of him. Employers would rather hire this guy with a felony drug conviction than him. You understand? They're the same candidate, y'all. His resume says Ohio State University engineering degree, 3.4 degrees. And his resume says Michigan State University engineering degree, 3.4 GPA. Whatever it is, right? You got it? They're the same person. See, that's affirmative action. That's racism. That's discrimination. There's no reason. There's zero reason. And if you ask any white employer or brown employer or black employer, do they discriminate? Every single one will say no, but we do these studies. And then we subtly watch and we see what happens. And we see again and again and again, we see discrimination. So we see that white people are going to benefit. Men benefit. All sorts of things, right? All right, thanks, Doug. Thanks. So look, let's do another one. I showed you this one before. Next slide. So we sent out 5,000 resumes that were identical except the name, and the names sort of what give it off. Marianne, Brett, Greg, Jill, et cetera, right? Even though we had a black dude the other day named Brett, but nonetheless, on average, right? Tamika, Ebony, et cetera. Who gets the most Who gets the most responses? Next slide. These 50% more. These are jobs, man. This is serious. This is like your job. So, look. You think it's a fair system, or we think but it really is beneficial to be black or to be brown because you get all these advantages. Really, what are the advantages that I've shown you thus far? Like, we're controlling for things here. This is not just making this stuff up. This is being controlled for. We're looking. The resumes are exactly the same. We just move a name. Go to the next one. Or here, this is one. This is a dude in the current department. He sent out 1,000 potential employees. These are real jobs. So he sent out these resumes. And all he did was, once again, just change the name. And these are fake resumes. And his idea was, look, maybe this stuff happens when you graduate Penn State or Shippensburg University or Towson State or something like that, but not when you go to Harvard and Stanford and Duke and Princeton. When you go there, anybody who graduates there is going to be treated equal. So you get a black guy, you get an Asian woman, you get a white guy, you get a Latina woman, whatever it is. If you come out and you're next to a person who's equal, you're going to be treated equal because you're a Harvard grad or a Yale grad, or whatever the case is, right? And look what he finds, man. He finds the same thing. That basically black applicants, and again, these are real jobs, but fictitious people. So he made the resumes exactly the same. Exactly the same. You got it? Exactly. So they know nothing other than the resume. He just changed schools. And what he found is that, look at the difference here. Black applicants were about as equal to white applicants who went to state universities and state colleges. Dudes, seriously? So you're telling me the black guy has to go to Harvard to compete with the white guy at Penn State? Yeah, that's what he's saying. That's how this is. And so white people, discrimination against white people is increasingly just as bad as discrimination against black people. Really? How many of you want to change places with a black person in this room? To get, the $2,000 in financial aid that they get from being black on average. How about, you want the $2,000 or do you want your white skin? What do you want? Seriously. And everybody has a story. Well, so-and-so got into the college of this and that. Look, that's all stuff. You got to control for the data. And when we control for the data, we see discrimination everywhere we look. You got to control. Just like when somebody doesn't rent an apartment to you because you're black or brown or a woman or you're gay or whatever it is, or you're Arab or you're Muslim or you're in a wheelchair, I have no idea. Whatever, that is not discrimination unless you can verify for certain under similar circumstances that they then turned around and rented the apartment to somebody else. So clearly they did not want to rent the apartment to you, and even then you don't know. You just don't know. You have to control for everything. And when we control, this is what we see. Next one, bro. This is actually a really good one. So what they did, and this isn't discrimination per se, but this is how it begins, y'all. So they took this picture in the middle. So these are gradations of skin color, okay? You can see that. They took the picture in the middle, and they would show people this picture just for a brief second. And they'd show it with the one word, and the word was either educated or ignorant. Did I talk about this when I did the race mixing thing? Okay, so either educated or ignorant. So you didn't have a long time to really look at it. You just looked at it for a brief couple of seconds, and then you were done. And then they do some things, and then they go back to it. And they say, hey, they show you all of these right here. And they say, hey, can you pick out that picture that we showed you? Just pick the one out, which is the face that we showed you earlier. And lo and behold, when they show that face with the word educated, which are the faces they tend to remember? These. And when they show that face with the word ignorant, which are the faces they tend to remember? Here. It's deep in us, you all. It's not only deep in white people, by the way. It's deep in black and brown people. That cop, the first cop that was beating that kid up, was a brown cop. It's deep in all of us. It's there. It starts early. It's these messages. They're there. They get there. They seep into our souls. We might think like, wow, I'm treating everyone equal and I'm being fair. Like everybody thinks they're being fair. Everybody thinks they're treating everybody equally. But when we do these tester studies and we control for your behavior, we constantly and consistently see discrimination and racist behavior, what appears to be racist behavior in some way. Dudes, by the way, hey, white people, can I say something here really fast? Dude, can you just stand up real fast? Look, you might be thinking, wow, yeah, this is kind of screwed up, right? This is not cool, right? Stand up real fast. Look, here, come stand right here now. Look, you might be thinking, hey, this is uncool. It's not fair. It's kind of screwed up. It shouldn't be this way. Like, yeah, that's not what they're thinking. You know what one thing I know that they're thinking, and all the other dark-skinned people in the room are going like, damn, this is going to affect my life. Like, this is going to affect my life. It's going to have an effect. With the degree to which they get jobs, you know what, want to know what else? Can you go back one real fast? Want to know what else they found? When the employers responded to them about the job, and they said, hey, we have a job for you. The employers that responded to the black applicants responded on average with jobs that pay $3,000 less on average than the jobs to the white applicants. So the employer came back, and I'm like, oh yeah, here it is. Hang on. And I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking like, oh yeah, we got these jobs for these two, right? This is cool. And like, yeah, here's a job for them. and here's a job for you, and here's a job for you, and the jobs that I give them look nice, right? Except here's the problem. I picked out jobs for them that on average across the board were paid $3,000 less than the jobs I sent off to white people. So I even am less likely to give them a job, and even when I do, it pays less than the ones I give to white people. And so the white people, my white brothers and sisters, you all right? Dude, there's nothing you need to do right now at all. You don't have to go sacrifice yourself. You don't have to reach into your wallet and just start handing money around to all black and brown people in the class. There's nothing you need to do other than just this right here. I have a certain privilege that I don't realize or have not realized that I have. And when you graduate Penn State, you will have a privilege. And maybe you won't get the one job you want because it will go to her because she's a woman or because she's black or whatever. Maybe you won't. Maybe you will. Who has any idea? But in all these other ways, you have the advantage, man. Does any white people want to just give it up? Just be black? You want to just send off your resumes and be black? Just send them off. Just tell them, hey, I'm black, by the way. Just want to let you know. Change your name to Tamika, Shakira, Shaniqua. Just change your name. See how it goes. You want to do that? That's what I'm talking about. It's just acknowledging something. And it's different for everybody, right? Thanks, man. Thanks. We talked about class in here. White people in class who are working class and poor, it's like, yeah, you are not in the same boat as upper middle class black and brown people. Like, they clearly have an advantage over you. They do. But right now I'm just talking about race. I already talked about class. Now I'm talking about race. And I'm talking to white people. All things considered, you're going to rather be white. Okay, go ahead. Let's go next one. Do I need to say anything? White people, do I need to be, what do I need to say? Dude, is there anything on Twitter I need to respond to? Dude, this is not a challenge. Look, white team, right? This is not like, I don't think we're not idiots, we're not evil, we're not this, we're not that, right? I mean, it's fun. I'm just living my life, dude. Like, this white brother right here, white sister right here, all they want, they're just here. You're here at Penn State, you just want to get a job and go get your job, and like, that's fine. You know what I mean, right? That's it. You're not like, you don't want the black and brown people in here to be discriminated against. Like, you don't want that. You want to compete fairly, right? The issue is, we get benefits. It's called affirmative action from being white. That we don't see it. What we see are these programs, affirmative action programs. Women and people of color are particularly encouraged to apply, right? It's like we see those things. We don't see all of the myriad ways everywhere in which it really benefits us to be white people. And I say everywhere because every time we do these tester studies, we see the discrimination. And it's not like, okay, that doesn't mean it's not every case. What I'm saying is every time we do them, we see discrimination. We never do not see discrimination. We never don't see it. You got it? It's there. Against women, against people of color. It's never not there.
Sam.
Yes.
AJ. I'm up here. I know you're going to introduce me later, but I just have a point I want to make about it.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so I'm this judge that's going to be talking to you in a few minutes, and Sam's got a whole slide, and he's going to introduce me and everything. So stick around. You'll get that. Here's the thing. Here's what bothers me. It bothers me as I sit here as a retired judge, and I'm sitting here listening to this. Because a lot of you probably think that what you can do, just go to court. Sue them. They're discriminating. Go to court. If they do, they'll probably lose. And they'll lose just because what Sam's talking now. When I became a lawyer 40 years ago, I'm old. When I became a lawyer 40 years ago, I went to a course on civil rights and how you do it, how you prove a civil rights case, how you prove a discrimination case. And I was told, and this was true back then, I was told what you have to do is bring in the statistics. You bring in the statistics, you will show that there's discrimination going on, and you win. Your client wins because there is provable discrimination going on. Then about the mid-'80s, the Supreme Court of the United States changed it all and said, oh, I think we're wrong handling it this way. No, unless this person can show discrimination in this individual case, they're not being discriminated against. So, as Sam says, hey, there's no discrimination in that case when you got followed. There's no discrimination in that case when you got picked up. There's no discrimination in that case when you didn't get the job. That's what the court's going to tell you too. Because you can't prove discrimination unless somebody was dumb enough along the line to say, I ain't hiring no black people. Unless they got you cold, you have no remedy for what's there, except legislation that grants you affirmative action, but good luck getting that through the political process these days.
Dude.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. We'll come back. Yeah, very good. Dude, thank you for doing that.
Mess up your timing, man.
I'll officially introduce AJ shortly.
I thought God was
Judge
talking
Wagner.
to us when he started
that?
speaking. I thought God was speaking to us for a second.
Well, it is God. He's a judge. You know what I mean? All right, so listen. Go to the next one. Here we go. No, go back. Ready? Go back. Remember these numbers, y'all. Ready? Remember 2016. Remember these numbers. This is all. We're not including all the other groups. We're just going right here. 39 million, 195 million. Okay? Remember those numbers. Got it? Can you hold on to that? Okay. Next slide. Male incarceration rates by rate. This is 2010, but I used it because I made this slide. It was really nice. Bureau of Justice, look at this. Out of every 100,000 black males, 4,347 are in prison. Out of every 100,000 white males, 678 are in prison. Dudes, that doesn't in itself say discrimination, because it might be that black people commit more crimes than white people. In fact, black people on average commit more crimes than white people, okay? But dude, can you go back one? Seriously? Look at the numbers here. There's so many more. Black people, go forward. Really, are black people committing that many more crimes? Black males than white males? That many more crimes? Really? Like, do you understand, like, what that has to be? That's like, you know, the thing I did the other day of, like, how many people in the United States, what percentage of the population is gay? And the average answer is 25%. And it's 3.5. And it's like, really? Do you really think black people are committing that many more crimes? It's like, it's everywhere you turn, you see. Go to the next slide. Here's one. Percent of people aged 12 to 25 years of age who sell drugs. Whites, 6.6% of whites who sell drugs between these years. Blacks, 5% who sell drugs between these years, okay? So, go back 2 slides, bro. Sorry about that. Do you know how many more white people that is than black people who are selling drugs? You get it, right? Look at the numbers here. 6.6% of this number, 5% of that number. Do you know how many more white people are selling drugs? A lot more white people. It's like, here's what it is, basically. This section, if this room was all like proportionately drug dealers, this section would be the black section, and all the rest of you would be all the white people. Even smaller than that, like half of this section. Okay, go ahead. Illegal drug use and incarceration, percentage drug users. So here we are, percentage, right? Of all the drug users in the United States, about 70% are white and about 12% are black. And then you have Hispanics, Asians. In here, percentage in prison for drugs. How do you go from here to here? How do you do that? What goes on here? Right? What's happening? What is happening that leads black people to be funneled into this system of prison? Like, what's going on? At some level, it's the same thing that's going on when we hold 2 resumes up, and the employer then looks at the resume of the dark-skinned person and the light-skinned person. Is just like, nah, I'm going to go with the light-skinned person, even if this is a better candidate. We create a story, and the story we create is about violence. Look, next one, man. Arrest rates for marijuana possession by race. White people, by far the greatest number of users, possessors of marijuana are white people. Look here, arrest rate. Look at black arrest rate, man. Per 100,000 people. Look at that. Whites stay steady. We just keep going up. The whole decade. Dude, seriously? Dude, black people, are you just dumb? You know how to not get caught? This is possession, y'all. This is not like black people or brown people or white people standing on the corners selling crack or weed or something. This is possession. So what are we saying? Black people they're just really dumb? They just get caught? What are you doing? Are y'all just walking around smoking blunts in public or something? Like, seriously. Like, what's going on here? White people, you know what this is? Evidently, if police in the courts or someone's so busy looking for black people, we must get away. I mean, I remember one time when I was a kid and we got pulled over, and we were smoking and drinking in the car, and we had like the back seat, we had a case of beer and empty bottles everywhere, and we rolled the window down. It was like, I don't know if none of you ever saw that Cheech and Chong movie, but the windows rolled down, and the cop probably thought the car was on fire because so much smoke was coming out of it. And by the time the cop got around to talking, he was stoned already. You know, all he wanted was our Cheetos. It's like, what do you want, officer? Could I have the Cheetos, man? I got the munchies. We're totally stoned. And you know what happened? You want to know what happened? He said, listen, boys, you shouldn't be here like this. We're drunk because we had a case of beer in the back. It's like 3 of us. He's like, just follow me home. Just follow my lights and follow me home. Follow to our home. He knew where we lived, dude. And I'm like, it's great to be white. But look at this. Seriously? Next one. Out of school suspensions. Once again, everywhere we turn, we don't know what really happens. Look, 20% of all the black kids are getting suspended. Right? Here we are, Equity Project. Look at this. Males compared to white males, compared to Asian males, American. Look at this. 20%. Why is it so high, man? Everywhere we go, out of school suspension. It's like with little kids, we start immediately seeing the dark-skinned kids as more violent, more problematic, more troublesome, they can do the same thing as the white kid, but somehow it can be described differently. But we need to really hold on to that kid's going to be out of control. And the best thing to do for that kid, and AJ can talk about this, is like we need to send this kid into the justice system, or we need to suspend them, or we need to do something else. It's a mentality of white supremacy and racism against dark-skinned people. It's just fundamental, y'all, right? It doesn't, oh my God, next one. Here we go. This is just in Connecticut. You can go to every state and find the data. Here's Connecticut, right? Disproportionate suspension of black and Latino students. So here we are. The total enrollment of white students, 65%. But of all the kids that get suspended, 23 are white. Total enrollment of black kids in the state of Connecticut is 13. 13% of all the students in the schools in Connecticut are black. 39% of all the kids that get suspended are black. Seriously? Seriously? Dude, these are people's lives. These are people's lives. When you're treating little kids like this, and it may be, okay, maybe the black kids are just a little bit more aggressive when they act out. But then we do tester studies. We do studies. And we sit down, we go into schools, and we look exactly what did the child do? How many suspensions did they have? How many times did they actually get in trouble? And when we compare one kid with the other kid, when they're exactly the same, they've done the same number of things wrong, they've been in trouble the same number of times, etc., we see this. Black kids, Hispanic kids get treated differently. It's like, dudes, fuck. Do you ever listen sometimes to people who are activists and are black? Activists, right? Like political activists, maybe Black Lives Matter or something. You ever listen, sometimes people listen to them talk and they're really pissed. They're really angry. And maybe you're watching them on the news or someone's got at a rally or something, and you see something on Facebook and someone's really pissed. I'd be pissed. Man, go to the next one. Juvenile incarceration rates in the U.S. per 100,000 youths. Look at this, man. Really? How are black kids, are they really committing that many more crimes? Are they really that much more dangerous? Are they really? Like, man. Next one. Which juveniles are transferred to the adult system? Look at this. This is from the Justice Institute. Look, here's the thing. And I'm going to have AJ talk about this. Look, you can get in trouble, school suspension, and you stand in front of a judge. You go to court and you stand in front of a judge. And then the judge has got to decide your fate. Somehow your fate's going to get decided. And they're going to treat you as a juvenile, maybe send you home with your parents or do something with juvenile court, which is going to be more lenient, of course, right? Or they're going to decide, hey, you're really a problem. We're going to send you to the adult system, the adult court, which means you might go to prison with adults. We're going to send you that way. So you're standing there and you got to decide. Like somehow you're going to go, you're going to be seen as a kid or you're going to be seen as an adult. And when you're seen as an adult as a young age, and you're treated as an adult, and then you get into the system, and it's a very different world, y'all, right? It's a very different world. Your records are less likely to be expunged. You're going to engage more and more people that are really not violent, not in your best interest, not in whatever the case is. And look, black kids, 18.4 times more likely. Latinos, 7.3 times more likely. 4.5 times more likely. Dudes, all of you, white juvenile delinquents, those of you who got in trouble with the law, that's affirmative action for you. It's beautiful. Those of you white people, you're going to have white kids. If your kid gets in trouble, it means it's going to be less likely to go that route. It's beautiful. It's not beautiful. This is what we're talking about. Right? Next one. Here, this is just Florida. Here are the numbers. 55% white, 16% black, 25% Hispanic. This is a study that just came out this year, just recently, okay? Okay, 16% black, 55% white. Next slide. Look at this, okay? These are these are all youth, okay? So we're looking at all youth in Florida, okay? Follow this. I know that it's hard sometimes to follow data, but I'm going to walk you through. These are just the boys. So of all the boys that get transferred to the adult system, of all the kids that get transferred to the adult system, boys and girls, 28% of all the kids that are arrested, right? 28% are black boys, 29% are black or white boys, 11% are Hispanic boys, then you have Asian boys, and then you have all the girls, and it all equals 100. So of all the kids that are arrested, right, 27% are black boys and girls, okay? Got it? But look at 51% of all the kids that get transferred to the adult system are black boys. Once again, it's a whole system. It's a whole system. Hang on, AJ. Give me just a couple minutes here. No, let's not, man. Dude, AJ, come on down. All right. So listen, we have another guest. Every time I talk about discrimination, by the way, this is AJ Wagner. Just say hello to AJ. AJ is a retired judge. And every time I talk about this stuff, I always say, I wish I had a judge in class who could talk about what goes on, what actually goes on. And so, does he look like a retired judge? This is what happens when you retire. You just wear an old sweater and you let your...
I told Sam I should have bought my robe.
Yeah.
So I look a little
We
better.
were going to build a little platform up here for
Yeah,
him.
just to sit up there and
preside
pound
over the class.
Pound my gavel and
Dude, the whole
you
thing.
know.
So you were a judge in Dayton, Ohio,
Dayton, Ohio.
Montgomery County.
Right.
And, you know, one of the things that, can you go back one? One of the things that these numbers here, so, you know, this is that direct file statute, right, in Florida. So what happens is these kids, the reason they get to the adult system is because the prosecutor can bypass the judge, and the prosecutor on their own can just decide, hey, you know what, this kid's actually such a problem. I'm just going to send him right to the adult system. And nobody ever gets to weigh in on it. There's no lawyer involved. There's no judge involved. The prosecutor just on his or her own gets to decide which kids go where. And 98% of all the kids that get transferred to the adult system in Florida are just based on the word of some prosecutor. And if that prosecutor is racist, then this is the kind of stuff we see.
And there's an extremely good chance that prosecutor's white.
Extremely good chance.
Extremely good chance. In Ohio, I think we had 1 or 2 black prosecutors out of 88 counties.
So go to the next slide again. Keep his beautiful. Okay, so AJ,
Oh,
tell me.
it's my wife. I like her.
Oh, you're only saying that because she might watch the stream.
She
All right.
won't watch it.
All right. So listen,
Bored with me.
tell us what's going on, man. So you're a white guy, you're a judge, you're watching these cases after cases after cases. Tell us some stuff that goes on.
You know what's terrible is there's just so much I want to say because there's so much horror in this whole thing.
Hold up, right.
Yes, thank you. There's so much horror in this whole thing. I would sit on the bench and I presided over thousands, probably tens of thousands of cases, criminal cases. I did civil cases as well, but criminal cases. And I will tell you that I watched the people who stood before me, and I can tell you in Dayton, Ohio, population about 150,000. Montgomery County population about 650,000. A medium-sized place, rather, it's urban, but it's not a big city, but it's urban. There's a black side of town, there's a white side of town. And everybody I saw standing in front of me, almost everybody I saw, was poor. Almost everybody I saw standing in front of me came out of the city of Dayton. I didn't see people from the suburbs. I didn't see people from especially the rich suburbs like Oakwood and Centerville and all the white kids that were out there doing as much drugs, you saw it, as the black kids. I saw the poor kids in a town where half the kids were black. So I saw half the kids I was seeing were black. And I say kids because that the statistic you used, 18 to 25, that covers about 80%, 75, 80% of who I would see. By the time people get past the age of 25, they do figure it out and try how to stay out of trouble. They're poor. They're highly disproportionately black. And what happens to them not only is the conviction they're probably going to get because they're standing in front of me, because they can't complain, like I just said earlier, they can't complain that, well, but you didn't go you didn't go arrest any white guys out there in the suburbs. Isn't this discriminatory for me to be standing in front of you? No. Did you do it or didn't you do it? That's the only question I can ask.
So that's the only one you can ask. So
It's
the
the only one
issue
I
is,
can ask.
so how do kids get in front of you? Like, how is it that a group of kids and not another group of kids?
Right. They only do drug enforcement primarily, and I shouldn't say only, because there are some exceptions to the rule. But primarily, and heavily primarily, they only do drug enforcement in the city. They only get the grants, the federal grants, the money that allows them to buy the equipment and do the kinds of surveillance and do the kinds of things they need to do and hire the cops that they need to hire. The only way they get all that money is that money goes to the urban areas. Suburbs don't worry about it. They don't apply for it. They don't have drug task forces. That's what they call them, the drug task force. We'd hear about the drug task force all the time. I got picked up by the drug task force. And that's what we would get. But it was all concentrated in the city and in the poor neighborhoods.
And disproportionately black and brown neighborhoods.
Disproportionately, highly disproportionately. Black
And who's
brown.
making those decisions, man? Like, who's making the decisions in the end to say, these are the people we're going after? Or is it less that, and it's more just the suburbs are deciding, we're not going to treat our kids this way. We're not going to have a drug task force and so on.
Yeah, the suburbs either don't qualify for the money because the money's geared toward where there's
areas.
urban areas and there's certain populations, or they don't get, or they can't qualify for the money, or they don't qualify for the money because they don't see it as a problem. Now here is a real situation, a real problem that some folks in politics have run into, and I mean even black politicians who hear from their constituents in the city who are tired of their stuff getting stolen, who are tired of the gunfire in their neighborhoods, who are tired of being afraid to put their kids on the bus to school, and they demand a lot more enforcement.
So they're demanding the
So
enforcement.
they do demand the enforcement too.
So it's all coming from both
So it comes
ways.
both ways.
Say, tell the story. I remember, I mean, we haven't talked very much actually, but you did. I remember one time when I first met you, you told a story about like the kid on the bicycle that didn't have a light on it in the daytime, and like this kind of thing, and like what happens, how police can hassle people and their discretion about who they're going to arrest and not arrest, and that just was.
I'm a new judge. I'm a fairly new judge when this happened, and this kid, I get a kid in front of me. He got picked up for not having a light on his bicycle. Dayton has a law that you have to have a light on your bicycle. He got arrested for not having a light in his bicycle. Young black kid. It was in broad daylight. It was in the middle of the day. The police pulled him over, suspecting he might have some drugs, and he did have a small amount crack, very small amount. Crumbs. They pulled him over because they suspected something. It was
They
just
said
a
they
hunch.
suspected something, whatever.
They,
but
they had no reason. They could articulate no other reason to pull him over, other than he did not have a light on his bicycle, and he's standing in front of me pleading guilty. And afterwards, I got his lawyer aside and I said, "I'm new, but why didn't you challenge that? Why didn't you file a motion to suppress on that? I mean, I don't know about that." He said, "Judge, you would have, even if you had ruled for me, they would have appealed it, and you would have lost because, well, he violated the law. And if you violate the law, they have a right to pull you over, to stop you, frisk you, see what they can find."
So the police can just have that discretion to decide
Right.
who they're going to go after.
Right. And I don't have the numbers in front of me to tell you, but you had that chart that went, Jeff, it's the one that went, how many blacks and whites, keep going, it was a black and white one. There you are. Was that it? Yes. Where you see the increase in black arrests around 2004, 2005. That's about when police began stop and frisk. When they began policies, and New York City was famous for this, when they began a policy of just, if they saw you, they'd stop you and they'd frisk you. They didn't have any probable cause or anything. It's actually illegal, and the courts have finally told them it's illegal. You can't do that. But they would do it. They would just stop and frisk you, and more than 85% of those who were stopped and frisked in New York City, they were black or people of color.
So here, we don't see any increase here.
But once you see
we
stop
see
and
here.
frisk,
But why aren't we seeing, we also don't see this increase in the white arrest
right,
rate.
because they don't get stopped and frisked in those kinds of numbers anyway.
So
So you
this
don't
is-
see it.
we're going to ask for some people in class to give some examples, but this is it, right? When I know when I walk down the street, hang on. When I used to walk down the street with a bag of weed in my pocket, I never thought about getting stopped or anything, man. It was never an issue. It was not even in my consciousness that I
Right.
could possibly get stopped.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't have to worry about it in your neighborhood or where you went. One other thing, an observation I want to make too about Sam saying that this affects people personally. And he was talking in terms at first of the jobs and whether somebody could get a job. If you stood in front of me and you pled guilty to a crime, not only did it make it tougher for you to get a job, but you will, for the rest of your life in Ohio, and I'm going to tell you Ohio right now, and there's the same, it's true in Pennsylvania, but I don't know all the rules in Pennsylvania. But in Ohio, you were no longer going to be, you couldn't get a license to be a barber, to sell real estate, to sell insurance. You couldn't live in public housing. You couldn't get certain scholarships. There were over 500 different, what they call collateral sanctions put on you because you pled guilty. 500 different things you can't do now for the rest of your life. So you're 18 years old, you're driving your bike down the road with the light out. The reason it matters for that kid is now he's got a criminal record, a felony criminal record, and for the rest of his life, he will struggle to get a job. He will struggle to get promotions if he's lucky enough to get a job. For the rest of his life, he's almost guaranteed to be living in poverty. Almost guaranteed. There are people who overcome it, but it is rare. It is unusual. It is difficult to overcome that. Once you get that record, for life. For life. Every sentence I gave out, I may have given out a lot of probation and when I did, but it was still a life sentence. It was still a life sentence. This impacts people tremendously.
So when the police decide to use stop and frisk, and they're focusing on black and brown people and not white people, that's a whole population of people who are going to get, as you say, a life sentence.
A life sentence.
Just because of that decision on the part. And what about the juvenile courts? Right? So this is a big issue. I kind of passed it by, but.
And it's a bigger issue what you showed in Florida than it was in Ohio, but it was still an issue. I will tell you, every step of the process, there's another opportunity for a discriminatory decision to be made, and in every step of the process, generally, even where you run into folks who don't mean to be discriminatory, it gets a little bit worse for the people of color. So. You've got the cop on the street who decides to stop you. That's the first shot at a possible discriminatory issue. Then you've got you've got to go before a judge to get bail. That's the second place where you might get stuck in jail with a high bail, even though you've really done very little wrong. Then the prosecutor's got to review the case and decide whether to take it to court or not. And they'll take you in Ohio before a grand jury. But first, it's a prosecutor's decision whether he's even going to take to the grand jury. So there's a third place, and again, almost everybody you run into along this way, by the way, is white. And then you get in front of a grand jury, and then they get a chance. Their numbers will be more discriminatory. It's what Sam said. Every time you look at this and you do the numbers don't add up.
Yeah.
And so then you get indicted, and then you get yourself in front of a judge and a jury. But good luck getting a jury proportionately or in any way that looks like you if you're a person of color.
Well, yeah, because one of the things, the rights that's been taken away from you is the right to vote. So if we're taking our jury list from jury pools, right, from people who are registered to vote, then we're going to get many more white people there. So it's just like, it's just an endless. So I want to do this. I want to watch a video.
Okay, let's do it.
And you'd probably grab that seat right there.
I liked it up there.
Or just,
I was close
no,
to
no,
the,
no, stay down here.
Oh, it was close to the popcorn.
All right, yeah.
By the way,
wanna-
if any folks from the Haiti Project are here, you put a little beer with that, and we can make some money. I'm just saying.
All right, watch this video. And then, AJ, I want to hear, I want some people in class to comment, but I want to hear you commenting. So, AJ, it's one story, but I've seen these stories and videos and read about them my entire life, right? And by far and away, they disproportionately happen to black people. Have you ever seen a case like this with a white person from the suburbs who gets taken down by the police in that way in all your years on the bench? And if so, how many compared to the cases that you see with black people?
Well, those cases aren't as likely to. Well, they don't happen that often.
Yeah, that's right.
So I was not likely to see them. When they come before me, the question is guilty or not guilty, and I'm not able to adjudicate your injuries that you got from the police. That's not in my jurisdiction. You can bring a civil suit, but you don't. That's not an issue that's in front of me when I'm adjudicating that. Now, I could look at that in mitigation of a sentence.
Yeah.
But I really would not get an opportunity. And I've had very few, but some folks complain the police were brutalized them in some way. But usually by the time they get to me,
Okay.
they've been through all those processes.
Okay, let me ask you
They
another
don't tell
question.
me that.
What happens with the police in this case? What typically happens? Because, I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, well, the police should be, I'm not in law enforcement, I'm just a civilian, just a person. Like, how do they get away with that?
Because there's this two important things, maybe three. Thank you. There's kind of a code, and police just don't talk or let each other get in trouble. They have union rules and rules that say you don't even have to talk to investigators for 3 days, 4 days. You get a chance to get your story together. You don't, other cops will back you up, so that there were 9 cops at that one earlier in the day and that you showed earlier, and so they'll all back each other up. They'll all tell the same story. They'll get it together. They'll tell the same story. I have a lot of cops who are friends, and some of them are really good cops. But when you get a bad cop, I don't understand why the good cops don't rat him out and say, this guy shouldn't be on the force. Because that's what's really disturbs me more than anything, is bad cops are allowed to continue doing what they're doing because good cops let them do it.
And so
And
one of
that
the
happens.
things that
So that's one thing.
So, and what I see, just on the good cop, bad cop thing,
Yeah.
a highly disproportionate number of the problems are caused by a fairly small number of cops.
Absolutely.
They just keep doing it over and over again.
Right.
So then the good cops, of which some of you or your parents are cops and
Yeah.
so on, it's like they think everybody gets the bad.
Yeah. And I don't understand why, again, I never understood why good attorneys defended bad attorneys or didn't get,
Yeah.
That's part of our job, I think, in a profession, is you police your profession.
So one is cops
one is
backing
cops.
each other up.
Two is when you go to the grand jury with these crimes, all a cop really has to say, and by the way, they're trained and coached to say this, is I was scared for my life, or I was scared because they were doing something that looked like they were threatening me, and I was scared for my life. That's all they got to do. So I think one of the most, to illustrate that most, is Castile in Minnesota, in Minneapolis or near Minneapolis, who was pulled over. He's got a concealed weapon. He says, the cop, I got a concealed weapon. I got a permit. And the cop's saying, well, get your license. And he reaches, and the cop shoots him and kills him. And that goes to the grand jury, and the cop says, well, I didn't know what he was reaching for. He was, even though the cop was asking him to reach for his license, I didn't know what he was reaching for, and I was scared. That he was going to hurt me. Grand juries tend to, again, and they tend to be white. and so mostly white, if not all white, and so they defend the police. And then, of course, you can, if it makes it past a grand jury some way, then you got to convince others. And again, you're probably going to have a predominantly white jury. And once again, it's a tough to overcome that beyond a reasonable doubt.
Do you have a question?
So, I was wondering, can you issue for a civil suit if you are pleading guilty, like in those cases?
Dude, hold it.
How does that work?
The question is, can you issue for, can you sue if you plead guilty? And the answer is usually no. Not always, but usually. I mean, there are some exceptions to that rule. But usually if you say, yeah, I did it, I did resist, I did, because the jaywalker didn't go to jail because he was jaywalking. In the end, he probably went to jail because he resisted arrest and assaulted a police officer because somebody got kicked somewhere along the way. And so he'll end up with those charges. If he admits to any of that, yeah, the jury and the judge are going to say, well, you started it, whether you did or not.
So listen, just as a, so your advice to students in class, one thing would be don't admit this. First off, don't say anything unless you have a lawyer.
Don't ever say anything unless you have a lawyer. You could be the most innocent person in the world. Don't say anything. Just don't say anything.
About anything,
Yeah,
ever,
ever.
under any circumstance.
Because what you say will be used against you. You know, because if you say, I just came out of the store and I was just going to get some candy, and then later on you say, yeah, I went into the store. I was going to get some potato chips. And right away they're, see, she's a liar. She said it was candy. And that's what you get hung with. You get hung with your own words when it's just a memory lapse, or it's just something that in the excitement you missed or whatever, and you end up getting hung with your own words sometimes. And so I recommend just don't say anything, ever.
This is a judge, you all. You got that? Say nothing at all.
Now, you do have to give them your name.
Yeah,
do have to do
your
that.
name. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's
Yeah.
basic information.
Bro.
Hey, so after everything you just said, and we just talked about, knowing about private prison systems, war on drugs, mandatory minimums, everything. You spent your whole life in this. With all due respect to you, because, you have to do your job. Do you think you'd be able to say that the system you have spent your life working in is corrupt and immoral?
I will say it's immoral. I will say that it's messed up. It's not justice. I didn't do justice as often as I wish I could have. But I got to tell you, confession, 10 years I was on the bench, and for those 10 years that I was on the bench, I stood there, I sat there and said, something's wrong with this picture. And when I got on the bench, man, I'm going to be a judge. Big deal here. I'm a big deal now. People are so nice to you when you're a judge. They kiss your ass all the time, and they tell you things, and sometimes I have to tell them, shut up, stop it, you're embarrassing yourself. But, what really, I realized fairly early on something was wrong, and I couldn't put my finger on it. And quite honestly, it was not until I retired, and I read Alexander's book, trying to think of her first name.
Yeah, prisons. Yeah,
the
prison
new Jim
industrial
Crow.
complex. Yep.
The new Jim Crow, and I said, this is it. Bingo, this is it. This is what I was up against all the time. Now, once I left the bench, people will ask me, are you glad you left? And I say, yes. I'm glad I'm not a judge anymore because I was a part of that. And I'm sorry I was a part of that. And that's kind of hypocritical because I made a good living and I did okay, and then I left. But, yeah.
Well, AJ, thanks for coming. Yeah.
Thank you.